Good afternoon and welcome to our British Water Thought Leadership series, Talking on Water. My name's Mark Fletcher and I'm the current chair of British Water. I have with me today Alan Lovell, the new chair of the Environment Agency, who's kindly agreed to an interview which we're recording to share across the water sector. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, Mark. I'm delighted to be with you and thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks very much. In terms of the outline for our interview, I'm going to ask a few questions and Alan can then share his thoughts. We might have some follow-up for clarification. We'll see how we get on. So I hope you're all suitably relaxed so we can make a start. First of all, you've been chair of the Environment Agency since September 2022. How have you found the landscape, Alan, and what key issues have you identified?
Well, the first thing to say that this is dream job for me. I'm quite delighted to be doing it. It's been my most special 9 months of work in what is becoming a rather long career, which I hope will continue for quite a bit longer. It's been a fantastic time, and there are three reasons for that, really. One is that the people in the Environment Agency are truly fantastic, and so I've been out on visits about once a week for those 9 months. So I've been around the country, seen quite a lot of what's going on. Wherever I go, I find passionate, committed, professional people, and I come home emboldened and enlivened by the contact with them. So that's point one. Point two is, as one of my predecessors said to me, you get given 1.9 billion a year to make the world a better place. What's not to like? And I think that's a good question. And third, and perhaps most important, I do think that we can make a difference. And I'm very conscious, and we should talk more about this, that it's a long-term challenge, but equally, I am very confident that by, let's say, 2030, within the next 3 to 5 years, I hope, we will see some significant improvements, and that will feel very worthwhile.
Thanks very much. I mean, thanks for both being sort of clear, frank, and open. And that's a really encouraging timescale that we can move from sort of binary politics to something that's a bit more everybody working together. I think that would be really positive. What do you think of these sort of immediate and long-term challenges that you think need to be addressed in the sector?
I think that, first of all, let's talk about the water industry, water companies first, yeah. and but we certainly shouldn't forget the other aspects. But the immediate challenge, I mean, let me go back one stage and say that the Environment Agency has a broad range of involvement, but it is primarily about water. And I don't know exactly, but I'm feeling as though 75% of our effort is on water, and most of my time for my first 9 months has been concentrated on water. There are other things which matter and which I need to put some serious effort into coming up, particularly waste, which we regulate, and also air quality. But let's just start with water and remind people that there are three principal areas of our involvement on water. First of all, on flood defence, where we help to derive the policy and are the delivery agent. That's different. Yeah. On water resources, where we are an effective advisor to DEFRA and work with the water companies. And then on water quality, where we are primarily the regulator. So a slightly different role in those three. As it happened when I started, activists were just waking up and were starting to make a lot of noise about river quality in particular. So that certainly had a deal of focus over my first 9 months. But I think we shouldn't forget, and particularly from a resilience point of view, it's really the other two that are absolutely vital. So flood defence is an area that where I think we've done quite well. Our program between 2015 and 2021 was very successful on plan and to budget, and we better protected about 320,000 properties. We're engaged on a larger 6-year run now, for which will seek to better protect somewhere around 250,000 homes. It's not as straightforward as the first period, which included a lot of low-hanging fruit. So this is more challenging, but it is really vital. And I think we need to keep reminding ourselves that there is prospect in the second half of this century of sea level being up to 1 meter higher around the coast than we have at the moment. And some people are saying that by even 2050, items that are storms and events that are now 1 in 100 year events could become annual. So we absolutely mustn't in any way drop our guard as regard flood defence. And we've had 6 or 7 years now where there hasn't been a really catastrophic storm or event that's caused really serious flood damage. But equally, I think our work has proven itself, because in each of the last 4 years, hundreds of properties sadly have been flooded, but thousands or tens of thousands have been protected as a result of our efforts. So we are pleased with that. We need to keep going, and there's a lot of very interesting, innovative work going on in that field, because of course, whereas in the old days, the natural assumption was that we would be building concrete barriers and keeping the water out that way. Increasingly, that should become the last resort, and we shall try to do as much as we can with natural flood management and nature-based solutions. So some innovative work is being supported by DEFRA in that field, including work on estuaries, the Thames Estuary 2100 project, for example, which will also help other estuaries. Some coastal transformation accelerator program, CTAP, on coastal erosion, which is another related difficult area. So there's lots of focus on flood, and I feel it's quite important actually for me to talk about that first. And of course, many of your members are really important contributors Absolutely. To that effort, which we much appreciate. If I move on to water resources, we are all aware that that's a challenge caused by 3 factors in particular: climate change, the hot, dry summers, population growth expected by about 10 million within the first 50 years of this century, and movement of people to the southeast, which is a drier area already threatened by water resource shortage. A fundamental point, and we will talk about this in respect of water quality as well, has been lack of investment in the industry. Yeah. And that goes back really as far as you like through the 20th century, I think. But it was certainly true in the period up to privatisation. There was an increase after privatisation, but certainly to my mind, there has been significant underinvestment over the last decades. And that's so now reverting to the water resources part of that. Although happily some reservoirs have been extended, the last reservoir to be built and finished in this country, new reservoir, was in 1991 in Derbyshire, and the next one is scheduled for Havant Thicket in 2029. So a 38-year gap. That does not feel right. And there are the potential is for, I think people are talking about 4 billion litre a day shortfall by 2050. And there is general recognition, I think, that we can only deal with that if we try very hard in all three available areas. One, new infrastructure. Two, resolving or at least improving the leakage position. And three, demand management. And the sort of numbers that I use is to say we can find 2 billion from new resources new investment, if the water companies deliver on their commitment to reduce leakage by a third, that saves 1 billion. And demand management, getting the average usage from 140 litres a day to 110 would save 2. So those three elements together make, in very round numbers, just for ease of communication, make up 5 billion, which in theory cover a 4 billion shortfall, but things obviously could go wrong, and I see that as a very important element of the effort that we and the water companies and Ofwat and everybody else needs to put in order to deal with what could be a dire situation of water shortage.
Absolutely, and it's all working together to very much to a sort of common end in that regard. So
it is absolutely. And maybe I'll just deal with the third, and then we can come back to that on water quality. Clearly, that's been the thing that has really attracted attention over the last few months, and we're very grateful to some of the activists who have raised this up the agenda and made everybody more conscious of it, and we are seeking to take advantage of that. As you're aware, that there are three principal causes of poor water quality, and in particular damage to rivers, which are obstructions and construction within the rivers, the diversion of rivers and aspects like that. Second, the water industry, and third, agriculture. And in very rough terms, rivers have been affected by about 40% by each of those three. So that's very important. That there's not much we can do about the encumbrances, but it's very important that we focus on the other two. And I'm encouraged partly by the integrated plan for water, which I think does set out a good set of proposals and actions which we can all respond to.
Absolutely.
Partly by what I see as real determination on the part of the water companies to make a difference, and partly by some of the discussions that we are having with agriculture. And I have been quoted, but I think it bears repetition, by saying that in some ways the water industry is easier for me. There are 9 water and sewage companies, and I talk to the chairs and chief executive of each of those regularly, and it's very easy to have a dialogue and have some pretty frank discussions. It's more difficult to reach 100,000 farmers, and we need to rely on other routes for getting there. But so there's been underinvestment. I'm delighted to say that both for water quality and for water resources, the plans that are being produced by the water companies at the moment, which Ofwat will be reviewing and which we also review, do indicate a major step up in expenditure over the next 5-year period, in the next AMP8. And I think that is very encouraging. From our point of view, we would like to see all that is in the current plans reflected in the final versions. I think we need to be realistic that there are some constraints on that related to how much we can do with what's an appropriate level to raise customer bills by in what is clearly a sensitive period. Point one. Point two is, can the supply chain handle it? And that's going to be a relevant point of discussion, I imagine.
Yeah.
And third, in some cases, we need to recognise that the water company finances need to be treated with respect, let's say, and they will not be able to do all that they would like to do in the short term.
So it promises to be a roller coaster of a ride, and I think it'll go beyond that 5 years. I think that'll be 10 and 15. I had a chat with Ian Couch, and he said, we're all, expect for the foreseeable future. There's a lot happening, and that's really important that you're sharing your perspective with everyone. I think that's really important.
I couldn't agree more on that length point. Just to reconfirm that we have had decades, maybe more, of underinvestment. Frankly, it will take decades of, let's call it, full investment in order to compensate for that.
I agree with you completely. So
I think it is a wonderful opportunity for your members, and we look forward to seeing them getting busy and playing their part.
I think they're going to be busy, and there's an awful lot of procurement going on at the moment. So how can the industry players best work together to improve environmental performance? If we can all get together and get more aligned, so we've got a bit more common purpose to what we're trying to do. How do you see we can work better together? And in some ways, what's the Environment Agency's role in that? As you say, you're in different aspects of the water cycle with different roles in water resources and in flooding and then in environmental regulation. So how do you think we could, best bring those industry players together?
Yeah, I mean, of course, our prime area of responsibility is in regulating the water companies themselves. Yeah. We issued our annual school report on them last week, which we can maybe talk about. So we don't have direct relationships with your members in that sense. I think it's primarily for the water companies to build those relationships, but we can certainly encourage and from our point of view, that a key aspect is just making it known that there is a big opportunity, so as to enhance the level of capability within the industry. And I guess that the elements which are going to be really important for that are recruitment and training. And certainly don't waste an opportunity to talk about the opportunities for young people entering the industry. I think that it really is a place where they can look for 30 or 40 years of solid employment and some very satisfying projects. And I wish you all well with that.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important point. It's there's a sort of critical time where we're seeing climate change being realised, and we're the generation that is both aware of it and can do something about it. And what we do, there'll be a legacy for future generations. So now's the time to step up, I think, together and collectively.
Yes, I quite agree. From the way I started, all of what we do is of course related to climate change. I wish that we were further down the road of responding to it, but for sure we must do our best now, and is going to require a really good team effort in order to deliver that.
Yeah, well, we constantly get reminded in the news of whether it's floods in Bologna or around the world of extremes, and they're more frequent extremes and more extremes. So slightly different tack. You've recently increased capacity within the organisation. You've got a new CEO, Philip Duffy, started. What's your vision for the agency moving forward?
Yeah, I think I have huge respect for the work that my predecessor and the previous chief executive did for the Environment Agency in lifting it up and setting a really tough net zero challenge of 2030, which we are working towards, but we recognise will be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And in really increasing the visibility of the climate change threat throughout the country, and that was an invaluable service for which we will always be grateful. When I came in, I did think that where I could be most useful would be in real focus on the day job. I think that there are one or two areas where we can do things a little better, and certainly we have just launched what we've called a water industry transformation project, which will see us regulating a little differently in places. For one thing, we're embedding an approach that really targets our resource and interventions to uncover non-compliance and then drive better performance from the industry. Second, we have been able to recruit some additional officers. We made a big difference to our agricultural inspection effort 18 months ago. We're now doing the same for the water industry area. And we need to support robust regulation with by transforming our use of data, better intelligence to support regulatory decisions, improving digital capability, increased training in auditing and assurance. I think in some investment in innovation and becoming a really good, top quality, modern regulator is the most important thing that we can do. We just hired a chief executive who was a hotshot in the Treasury. He joined 2 weeks ago. He's a great person to get for this. He's had a big management job previously. He used to run the border force, so he's got Treasury expertise. He knows the civil service very well, but he's also a real operator. And so between us and as some of your viewers will know, I run the odd construction company in my time without any real understanding. I'm not going to pretend I was a proper contractor, but I have some visibility of it. So I think between us, there will be a stronger focus on the day-to-day, and we aim to be a model of environmental regulation around the world. That's what I'd like to achieve.
That's all really encouraging to hear, really positive. And just bringing the focus back to our members, a sort of segue you just almost provided for me. What opportunities do you think for British Water and our members to support the work you do to help in safeguarding the environment?
Well, clearly in work, doing great projects, primarily for the water companies, but I think that we are all looking for help with innovation. So if you and your members see better ways of doing things, familiarity maybe with a nature-based solution, maybe from overseas, those of them that are international, I think we are quite internally focused in this in the water industry, but I think that actually some of the international companies will have seen it done well elsewhere, and we shall certainly be very happy to learn from that. And I think that the water companies themselves will too. So anything that that helps the drive to do things A, more efficiently, but B, with less use of carbon. So it's dreadful for us to be preaching about climate change and then building concrete barriers which are not as low carbon as we can possibly make them. We are trying hard in that field, but we need to keep going. So I think in bringing in good people, training them well, all the things that I know I don't need to be saying this to your members. They will certainly be on the case. But those are the things that are going to make us able to deliver more quickly and in a more nature friendly and less climate damaging way. And if we can achieve all of those things between us, then we are in a much better place.
I definitely think we're shifting towards working more in tune with nature and considering natural processes in the way in which we're developing those things. So, and finally, anything else you'd like to share with our members? You got an open opportunity.
Gosh, I mean, I suppose I might just reflect on the school report, Mark, if I may, because we put that out last week. I tried to make it as balanced as possible. Some of the performance was deeply disappointing. The number of pollution incidents as a whole actually increased. But happily, some other areas improved, and in particular, the serious pollution incidents dropped quite significantly. They have got a bit better at self-reporting, which we think is something that should be easy for them to achieve. But the areas where more needs to be done. So I think that the school report would say decent progress, but so much more to be achieved. What I'm pleased about is that every single one of the water company chairs and chief executives who I talk to is absolutely committed to making a difference here and to cleaning up their act. I welcome the apology from Water UK and the intent to reset, and to some extent what I described as our water industry transformation project is our response to that reset, because we are also pleased to be doing we need to play our part in that as well, and it's an area which your members will definitely be involved in. So good and bad in the school report. Disappointing again that 2023 hasn't got off to a great start in terms of pollution incidents. Many, some of the companies are good, and I gave proper credit to those that are doing well. Severn Trent United Utilities and Northumbrian in particular, who are 4-star or very close to it. But even there, they all know that they can do better, and happily they're on the case. And I think we can and must continue to make a difference. The other area I'd perhaps reflect on is that this really is an industry that needs help from everybody, and that includes you and I as consumers. And I do think that that reducing demand is a really important element. And I'm conscious that it's not an easy time to be suggesting that water bills need to go up, but in order to fund and support the investment that the water companies are making, there does need to be an increase. Of course, it's not a good time to be doing that, and of course, also there must be a support arrangement, social tariffs, which supports those who can't pay. But I do like to reflect that the average water and sewage bill in this country at the moment is about £1.20 a day per household. So what's that? 40% of the price of a cup of coffee. And for that, you get some of the best drinking water in the world and a fine domestic sewage service. It's fantastic value for money. And if over this next period, the average bill needs to go up to half the price of a cup of coffee, it will still represent fantastic value for money. And I think that bears reflection on that, and saying to people, you are getting a wonderful deal here. Your part of it is, yes, to be willing to pay a little extra, but actually just as important, to be really careful about what you are using and respect this valuable resource, which all around the world, I suspect, is going to become one of the critical issues of the second half of this century.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we're already seeing those tensions in different parts of the world. So many thanks, Alan, and I really welcome your willingness to engage, share your thoughts and ideas and concerns. I was encouraged. We're all in this together, and we've all got a role to play, and that includes the passion of the activists. It includes the delivery of the supply chain and how we all work together. Really important. And on behalf of British Water, I'd like to wish you every success in your new role. And anything we can do in terms of expressing our help and support going forward, we'd like to do that. Thank you. That concludes our interview, and that's a wrap, as we said with Ian Coucher. So thanks very much, Alan.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Pleasure.